Stalin's son died in prison. Hello everyone. My name is Yakov Dzugashvili. I graduated from the Soviet Artillery School in May 1941 and was sent to the front line as a lieutenant just 40 days later. Nazi German forces in the city of Vitebsk surrounded us. The entire Soviet army fled, and even our division commander was lost. Left alone, I found a farmhouse and gave the farmer my military uniform in exchange for his clothes, which I wore and hid in the farmhouse. However, the farmer told me, "Please leave. If you don't, my whole family will be killed. If you don't, I'll betray you." I realized I had nowhere else to go. So I turned myself into the Nazi German forces and surrendered. At the prisoner of war facility, I was photographed and then interrogated, during which my true identity was revealed. This caused quite an uproar in Nazi Germany. That's because I was Stalin's eldest son. Stalin's name was Iosif Dzugashvili when he married my mother. My mother, Ekaterina Svanidze, lived in Tiflis. It was around that time that she met and married my father, a revolutionary activist. My mother was a quiet, beautiful woman. They began their married life in Baku, where my father was based. I was born, but both my parents were impoverished, and my mother made a living as a seamstress. Fearing arrest, my father returned home only occasionally, arriving late at night and leaving before dawn. My mother fell ill and died at the age of 22. It said that Stalin would tear his hair and lament at her coffin as he lay beside her. I was not yet a year old, but I was raised by my mother's sister, Maria Svanidze. My mother also had a younger brother named Alexander Svanidze, who, like Stalin, was a revolutionary activist. When I was 15, we moved to Moscow at Alexander Svanidze's suggestion. However, by then, my father had already remarried and had a half-brother named Vasily Stalin. My father was very cold to me, and for reasons I don't know, he called me a good-for-nothing. He insulted me at every opportunity. At 18, I graduated from electrical engineering school and started working as an electrician. Around that time, I met a woman named Zoya and tried to marry her, but my father was strongly opposed. He seemed to dislike anything I did. Desperate about my relationship with my father, I put a pistol to my chest and pulled the trigger. However, I missed the target and survived. My father became angry and said this to me.
"That loser can't even shoot a pistol straight."
After I was released from the hospital, on the advice of my father's ally, Sergei Kirov, I moved to Leningrad with Zoya. I worked as an electrical repairman at a power substation. We had a daughter, but she died of pneumonia just 8 months later. My relationship with my wife subsequently deteriorated, and we divorced. Hoping to make a comeback, I returned to Moscow, graduated from university, and started a new job as an electrician. I married Yulia Malzel in 1938, and after graduating from artillery school, I joined the Communist Party in 1941, but was soon taken prisoner during the war with Germany. Nazi Germany distributed large numbers of leaflets throughout the Soviet Union featuring a photo of me conversing with an officer. They read, "Stalin's eldest son, Lieutenant Yakov Dzugashvili, has surrendered to the German army." The surrender of such an important figure proves that resistance to the German army is entirely futile. We ask you to stop the war and join our side. My father, Stalin, was furious. He had always said, Soviet soldiers either fight and win, or die, and yet his eldest son had surrendered. At the time in the Soviet Union, there was a rule that the families of captured soldiers were sent to concentration camps known as gulags. My father applied this rule to me as well and sent my wife, Yulia, to Lubyanka prison. I was then sent to Germany and placed under the custody of Propaganda Minister Goebbels. Then came shocking news: my uncle, Alexander Svanidze, Stalin's brother-in-law, had been executed by firing squad. In 1942, Maria Svanidze, who had raised me, was also shot. She was my father's sister-in-law. My father's message to me was clear. I was imprisoned in the Sachsenhausen concentration camp in Brandenburg, where I gradually became mentally ill. After the German defeat at Stalingrad and Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus' capture, the Germans proposed exchanging Field Marshal Paulus for First Lieutenant Yakov. My father, however, immediately refused, saying, "An exchange between a marshal and a first lieutenant is impossible." I was shocked, and my mental health reached its breaking point. One morning during roll call, I began walking toward the barbed wire carrying high-voltage electricity. The guards ordered me to stop, but I ignored them and continued walking. I refused to heed the warning shots and was eventually shot dead. I was 34 years old. My father reportedly stared at the photo in silence upon hearing of my death. Yulia was released.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vasily Stalin. My father, Stalin, was married twice. His second wife was Nadezhda Alalieva, my mother. In 1932, when I was 11, my mother shot herself with a gun. She had gotten into an argument with my father at a celebration party, and the next morning, she was found dead after leaving the venue. At the funeral, my father cried profusely. Many people say that this was the only time they ever saw Stalin cry. Strangely, my father showed almost no interest in me. I felt no love from him, and he never treated me any differently. We grew up in a family without a father or a mother. It was during the Great Purges, when even our relatives were imprisoned and executed, and the families of our close friends disappeared one after another. My half-brother Yakov was deeply troubled by my father's lack of affection, but I didn't pay it much attention. It was probably a personality issue. My father's subordinate, Beria, was kind to me, and through his introduction, at the age of 17, I enrolled in the Kitan Aviation School in Crimea, a school that was the envy of young Soviet students. In this place, far from Moscow, where my father was, I made full use of the name, Stalin. On the day of my enrollment, I lied to the school officials and told them, my father will be coming to see me soon, and enjoyed watching them turn pale and start preparing frantically. I didn't live in the student dormitory, but in a separate guest house. I used the officers' cafeteria instead of the student one. I even had a car provided to take me to school. When my father heard about this, he was furious and said, "Don't give him special treatment. You don't need any attention or consideration." But I ignored him and continued to use the name Stalin. I got married at 19, and when I told my father about it, he said this:
"I feel sorry for my daughter, who married a fool like you."
Around that time, I began to drown my drinking. I had a secret anxiety. I was born when my father was 43, and he was already over 60. What would happen to me if my father, who had purged millions, died? I knew I would be a target for retaliation. At best, imprisonment, at worst, execution by firing squad. I had no power to resist. That's why I had no choice but to enjoy the moment. Drinking with friends and flirting with women was the only time I could escape my anxiety. As Stalin's son, I rose steadily through the ranks, becoming a major at 20 and a colonel at 21. I even flew combat planes, always accompanied by a large escort. After the war, I rose to the rank of general, and, as a sports enthusiast, I founded a professional hockey team. This was my most incredible pride. One time, the team was flying to Chelyabinsk Airport, but a blizzard caused it to close, forcing them to land at Kazan Airport. Afraid they'd be late for the game, I called Kazan Airport and, in Stalin's name, ordered the plane to fly back to Chelyabinsk. The plane crashed in the blizzard, killing the entire team. I called my father to apologize, but he said he had no interest in hockey and hung up. Since plane accidents didn't exist in the Soviet Union, the incident was treated as a mass disappearance of the team. By that time, I was already divorced and consumed with alcohol and women. In 1952, I attended a celebration for the Air Force parade while drunk, incurring my father's wrath and dismissing me from all my positions. The following March, the day finally came. My father died. My worst fears became reality. The breakup came sooner than I expected. In April, I was arrested on suspicion of treason and subjected to brutal interrogation, forcing me to confess to everything, even things I had nothing to do with. I pleaded with Khrushchev, who was my father's loyal subordinate, but my plea was rejected, and I was sentenced to 8 years in prison. I was imprisoned in Vladimir prison and released in 1960, but soon became an alcoholic and was exiled to Kazan. I died of alcohol poisoning in 1961, aged 40.
Hello everyone, I am Nancy Anderson from Kitan Club. I sent you a video about the tragedy of Stalin's sons. In a previous video, I discussed the tragedy of Mao Zedong's 2 sons, but Stalin's sons also had tragic lives. Do dictators tend to have less love for their family? Kitan Club is a channel covering a wide range of topics, including history, culture, and literature. We advocate a literary renaissance. We appreciate your continued support. You can read more about this in Kitan Club. If you're interested, search for it on kitan-stories.com. See you in the next video.
Kitan Club invites you into mysterious stories. Click the link in our profile or search kitan-stories.com. We look forward to your visit and will provide you with free samples. Please click like and subscribe.